Hi, Popcorn Junkies. Get your army movie hats on. What's your favourite army movie? What's your favourite? Well, there are so many different war movies, army movies, aren't there? All that kind of stuff. Obviously, there are many that were made around the Vietnam War. I'm thinking of things like Apocalypse Now, The Deer Hunter, Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket. All of those, all really good. I mean, I sometimes think the best films about war and conflict are the ones that, you get the sense of macro, you get the sense of scale, and you get the sense and the heft, if you like, of history, but you also get the detail, the finer detail, the micro individual trauma, personal triumphs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, a classic example for me, I think one of the best, certainly World War I films that I think has ever been made is 1917, the Sam Mendes film, which essentially, it didn't literally, but essentially purported to follow in real time two soldiers as they went on a mission on the front line in World War One. Incredibly stressful, incredibly vivid, managing to capture and represent the true horror, the sort of the absolutely soul-destroying horror of a war that changed irreversibly the course of mankind. And I think that's the thing about World War One, still to this day up and above almost any other conflict. I mean, many more conflicts over time have become wars of distance where missiles are fired and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think Vietnam is the last one where you can think of that. Obviously, there's all the conflicts in, there's war in Ukraine and what have you. So conventional conflict still happens. But in terms of those global kind of conflicts that then merit films and what have you, World War One was that first moment where technology, the sheer heft and horror of technological warfare and chemical warfare could really reap havoc. Obviously tens of millions of people dying in the First World War. So for me, 1917 is a high benchmark to hit or to cross or to match in a sense, which is why there's a new film coming from Netflix called All Quiet on the Western Front. And this is, of course, based on the book by Erich Maria Remarque, who was a German veteran in World War One. This was turned into a film, I think, in 1930, was it? It was also turned into a TV film, I think, starring, Ernest Borgnine, was he in there? So we all hear the phrase All Quiet on the Western Front, and it didn't really occur to me until I saw the press publicity and everything for this new iteration of this film, that actually this is a story about the First World War told from the German perspective. And if you think about it, All Quiet on the Western Front, it would only be a Western Front, the war, if you were in the East. And, of course, Germany would have been in the East. Otherwise, if it was us telling this war or telling the story or writing the title, it would be All Quiet on the Eastern Front. So this is a story about World War One. And, from all accounts, this has done the rounds on the film festival circuit, and it's gone down absolutely sensationally. And when I say sensationally, it's difficult subject matter, it's unflinching, it's incredibly meticulous, I think, in its observation of the finer details, the granular details of what it meant to be in the trenches and fighting such a fruitless war, such a demoralising war, and such a fatal war in a sense. So I'm looking forward to kind of watching this. I think, for me, it's really important. I'm one of those people who believes it's really important to remember. I think remembrance is a really important thing. Remembrance of all soldiers, not a remembrance of one's own nationalistic fervour, but a remembrance of all the sacrifices that soldiers, young men and women, have made over the years on behalf often of states, nations and monarchies and what have you, and governments for whom they were themselves totally unrepresented. So I'm always interested in a sort of grassroots story told from the perspective of the real people on the real front line. I think that's always where it becomes incredibly compelling, often incredibly distressing and sad. So let's watch this. I think this is going to be quite something.
Paul Bäumer.
Ich möchte noch nicht loslegen.
Und ein
Wir sind jetzt an der Westfront.
Wieder
mehr als 40.000 Tote allein in den letzten Wochen.
Es ist vorbei. Im Namen der Menschlichkeit, ich bitte Sie um den Waffenstillstand.
Vous avez 72 heures pour accepter nos conditions.
Ich werde nicht kapitulieren.
Meine Mutter wollte nicht, dass ich in den Krieg ziehe. Ich wollte Ihnen zeigen, dass ich das kann.
Ach, Paul. Ja, mal nach Hause kommen.
Ich vermisse meine Kameraden weg!
Schließen wir Frieden.
Es tut mir leid.
Ich habe Angst vor dem, was kommt.
Du musst jetzt tapfer sein. Für die, die es nicht geschafft haben.
Für uns alle.
Whoa. There's a piece of music by a composer called Arvo Pärt, P-A-R-T. Check it out. It's called Cantus. I think it's also subtitled In Memoriam of Benjamin Britten. And it's a bell tolling, and it's a piece of incredibly emotional orchestral music. That music there was giving me all sorts of... not Wim Mertens, who's a composer for films for Peter Greenaway, and the guy who did the music for Amelie and stuff like that, and Goodbye Lenin. Daniel Brühl in there, obviously, also a fantastic actor. It's that it gets me in the gut every time. And I think the reason I find it so moving is because, of course, you see within this landscape, within this warscape, within this devastated kind of Armageddon apocalyptic kind of visions of the earth, of land, you see young men, obviously in World War I, principally young men, young boys, who you can see in that early signing up to go to war moment, see the adventure in it, see the national fervour in it, think they're pleasing their seniors and their elders and those in authority, and then quite quickly discover that they are in a situation way, way, way beyond what any small, normal 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old man could in any way comprehend or contend with or deal with. And so, of course, I always go to a place of parental concern and parental upset. I had goosebumps all the way through that. It's so traumatizing. And I think to see it again, I think it's really important that we get to see it also from the German perspective, because, you know, we have enough historic distance, I think, now from World War I, though, of course, there's still that age-old idea of Germany versus Britain and all that kind of stuff. But we can look at this now as an event that was a mistaken event by both sides of the equation, you know, that so much life was lost and thrown away on both sides for all the wrong reasons. And so there's a sort of great equalising aspect, I think, to this being told from the German perspective, because once again, these are just young German soldiers. And I'm forever reminded of that moment in World War I when, you know, they all, one Christmas, they chucked a football into no man's land. And both the Germans and the Brits kind of got up, played football, and then the next day went back to shelling the fuck out of each other and shooting each other. It looks like the depiction of no man's land, the horror of war, those rats, the kind of rat-infested trenches and all that kind of stuff. So evocative. It's going to be a tough watch, but I think, you know what, it's really important with all the modern technology that we have and the modern sort of storytelling tricks that we have to keep telling these stories, to have the stories of World War I and these historic events repackaged and represented to newer audiences so that we don't forget. Lest we forget, we should not forget.